Eddie and Sue wandered the night as if they were a day old. Everything they did was new and exciting, yet similar and familiar. Lake Walk was vibrant even at this time of night, and the Apellico Concert Hall was lit and ready to fulfill its purpose. It was late for mankind, but early for the likes of monsters that live by way of the night. Sue looked at Eddie longingly and wiped a speck of blood from his leather jacket. Eddie kissed her as if it was the last thing he'd ever do in this life, with a desperate passion that came from a contempt for life, death, or any force of nature that adhered to rules. "Get us someone," Eddie whispered to Sue. The goth princess nodded knowingly, then glid into the crowd. Eddie sat up on a boardwalk overturning a broken crate. He placed his leather jacket on top of the broken wood just to give it a touch of decorum, and retrieved a deck of cards from an inside pocket. He slowly began to juggle the cards in the air, flipping them, sending them spinning in a way that wasn't impossible, but completely improbable. 4 cards, 5 cards, 6, float and fluttered like birds. He plucked them through the air expertly. Without words or overture, a small crowd stopped, enthralled by the feats of magical dexterity. Once Eddie felt he had amassed enough eyes on him, that was when the real show started. He began to engage the assembled crowd, finding those that were the most fascinated with his silent performance. He encouraged a muscular man with a backwards baseball cap and a faceless any girl at his side. The man pulled a card. It was a joker. Eddie enticed him to put the card right back on the very top of the stack. He didn't touch it or move it. "What card is it?" Eddie asked. Without missing a beat, the dude bro said, "It's a joker." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely." "How sure are you?" said Eddie, handing the man the entire deck, then reaching into his pocket and pulling a crumpled $20 bill. "It's a joker," the man repeated. Eddie looked down at the 20 in his hand. "You $20 sure?" "Dude, I'm $100 sure." Eddie made the come-on gesture with his fingers. The big man held the stack in one hand and pulled his wallet with the other. "I only got $68, dude." Eddie nodded, as if that was okay. "You ready?" Eddie said with a toothy smile. "You want me to pull it too?" said the man, growing ever more confident, seeing that Eddie hadn't even touched it. "Go," Eddie said. The man flipped the card. To his surprise, it was a 2 of hearts. "Bro, what the fuck?" Eddie snatched the cards and the money out of the man's hand before he attempted to pull it back and change his mind on the entire exchange. Card grifting was a magic trick, and when people realized that, sometimes they believed that they weren't on the hook because the game was rigged. It wasn't his fault you didn't understand the grift. It only mattered that you didn't act as if you were too special to be a mark. The man groaned and looked as if he were going to get upset, but when everyone clapped, even his girlfriend, he realized he was just part of the show and that was the cost of admission. Sue sat in a nearby alley and watched the back of the crowd. She was on the hunt. Turning to her own shadow that was weak from a faraway street lamp, she kneeled down and whispered to it. The woman looked up to a billboard on high, as if something was there, but she saw nothing. She tore her gaze away from the spot that sent a cold shiver down her spine. She muttered to her shadow, then inexplicably the shadow skulked away. Her body no longer was bound to the laws of physics, and she cast no shadow. She watched as her shadow self slinked about, moving innocuously through a gathered crowd, searching, hunting. She watched Eddie work. He loved to play with crowds, even if he tried to claim he didn't. If he really wanted money, it was infinitely more simple for him to pick it from their pockets. From the shadows of the alley, a voice spoke to her, a small voice, more low in confidence than it was in volume. It shook unsteadily. "Hey, I've seen people talk to their shadow before, but I've never seen it speak back. Is it you, or is it outside of you?" the man from the shadow said. Sue looked into the darkness nervously with her predatory eyes. She was shocked and afraid because despite there being nothing she couldn't see, she didn't initially see him. The man was small, wearing all black, with a black mop of hair that hung over his face similarly to hers. None of his clothes quite fit and hung lazily off his body. His pants were cut and shredded like someone took razors to it, and chains hung around his waist. There was a darkness that surrounded him that reached past any the shadows could provide. It was blackness that masked his soul and untethered him from reality. Sue all but panicked. She could sense the beast in him with her eyes that saw everything, even into your very soul. She whistled sharply. Any interaction with another kindred you didn't know was a dangerous proposition, especially when you chose not to live by the rules of the night. It's just something I can do. I never knew others couldn't, Sue said meekly. They can, but it's not like that. It's just a mirror of themselves. It doesn't think, said the dark kindred wearing a Smashing Pumpkins t-shirt. Eddie suddenly barged into the alley and defensively stepped in front of Sue. An obviously defensive posture. The new kindred's calm demeanor didn't break. In fact, if they cared about nothing, he must have cared about less than nothing. What's your business? Eddie said. He rose an entire head length higher than the stranger. I was just telling your girlfriend I've never seen anyone with a living shadow. Yeah, Eddie said, as if asking a question and threatening at the same time. Look, I'm nobody. I don't want anything from you. I doubt that highly, Eddie said. The stranger looked down and shrugged as if he had nothing to hide. You came into town for the concert, didn't you? Said the mysterious kindred. Eddie nodded. The stranger raised his hands in surrender. I can't deny a Pumpkins fan a chance to see them live. How many times can they retire? Every show they play may be their last. Eddie smirked, as if somehow being a fan bound them together enough to garner a measure of trust.